For a while, the stretcher match looked like the kind of stipulation World Wrestling Entertainment could keep returning to whenever a feud needed to feel nastier, more physical, and more personal. The rules were simple. You had to incapacitate your opponent, put him on a stretcher, and wheel him past a designated line. It was easy to understand, easy to market, and brutal in a way that felt different from an ordinary pinfall or submission. The goal was not just to win, it was to leave the other person unable to continue. That is exactly why the match had appeal. A stretcher match suggested that the rivalry had gone beyond normal competition. It implied damage, not just defeat. The finish itself told a story. One wrestler was not merely beaten, he was being taken out. That made the stipulation feel serious, especially in grudge feuds where the company wanted the violence to look more punishing than technical. The company's own history shows that stretcher-style matches go back much farther than many fans realize. One of the earliest examples in company history involved Andre the Giant and Killer Khan in 1981. Later, the stipulation appeared in higher-profile modern settings, including Brock Lesnar versus Big Show for the company championship at Judgment Day in 2003, Rob Van Dam versus Randy Orton at One Night Stand in 2007, and Batista versus Shawn Michaels in 2008. That history makes one thing clear. The stretcher match was never a one-off novelty. It had a real place in the company's toolbox. And yet, it never became a true staple. That is what makes the rise and fall of the stretcher match so interesting. On paper, it had a lot going for it. The rules were clean, the image of a wrestler being wheeled away was strong, and the stipulation could make a feud feel ugly in a believable way. But unlike a ladder match, a steel cage match, or even a casket match, it never developed a larger identity of its own. It was useful, but not iconic. It served the feud, but it rarely overshadowed it in a memorable way. That may be the biggest reason it never fully took off. The stretcher match was effective, but it was hard to make it feel special. A casket at ringside changes the whole atmosphere. A giant cage creates an immediate visual. A flaming ring is unforgettable. A stretcher, by comparison, is much more grounded. That realism gave the match some of its credibility, but it also limited its spectacle. In a company built on larger-than-life imagery, the stretcher match often felt more like a supporting stipulation than a signature attraction. There was also a practical, creative issue. The finish could be dramatic, but the match itself was not always easy to structure in a way that felt natural from start to finish, because the goal involved repeatedly trying to place someone on a stretcher and push him across a line. The action could become stop and start. In the right rivalry, that worked. In the wrong one, it could feel mechanical. A stipulation can survive occasional awkwardness if it has a massive upside. The stretcher match had value, but not enough unique value to force its way into regular rotation. Over time, the company also shifted toward a more controlled, family-oriented presentation. In 2008, World Wrestling Entertainment publicly announced that its programming had moved to a PG television rating and described its content as family programming. That did not kill the stretcher match by itself, but it mattered. A stipulation built around visibly incapacitating an opponent and wheeling him away fit more naturally in a rougher, more violent presentation than in a cleaner, more carefully managed one. As the company evolved, there was simply less need for this kind of match to appear often. And that is really the heart of the story. The stretcher match did not disappear because it was a disaster. It became rare because it was useful without ever becoming essential. It could add intensity to the right feud, but it was not distinctive enough to become one of the company's defining gimmick matches. It lacked the mythic feel of the company's darker stipulations and the visual branding of its bigger spectacle matches. What remained was a match type that fans recognized, but not one the company needed to keep returning to. That does not mean it failed. In some ways, the stretcher match did exactly what it was supposed to do. It raised the stakes, made feuds feel more violent, and created finishes that looked decisive. But in a company where the most successful stipulations usually become traditions, annual attractions, or signature settings for major stars, the stretcher match stayed in the middle ground. It was credible. It was occasionally memorable. It was never truly central. In the end, that is why the stretcher match rose and fell the way it did. It rose because it was simple, physical, and effective at making a rivalry look vicious. It fell because it was too plain to become iconic and too limited to become essential. The company could always bring it back when the story called for it. It just never became the kind of match fans expected to see as a permanent part of World Wrestling Entertainment's identity.